Hi, and welcome to Real Life with Jenny. My name's Jenny Senaparatna. Grab your favorite drink and a snack, and we will get started. Today, I'm drinking toasted coconut almond bark black tea. Yes, it's my old standby, but it's a cheap one that I really enjoy. And some grapes. Green grapes, green grapes. Okay. Let's get real. So this year, my word is to thrive. So I've talked a little bit about things I'm doing to do that. And I decided to do something very crazy for me. I joined a small group. I know you're all supposed to be like, my church is like, you should be in a small group. This is important. This is, and that's not my thing. I have tried many small groups and I tend to do too much talking. I know you're shocked. I tend to get into a small group and I feel like I do way too much talking. Or then the next week, because I did so much talking the week before, I'm super quiet and everybody thinks I'm cranky. So I really struggle with small groups because, first of all, time, because aren't we all like, when am I going to fit this in? But most of them have been on the weekends, which is really hard for our family because we're gone every weekend. So I was like, okay, I got invited to this small group. And honestly, it's the first small group I've ever been invited to. So I'm like, yes, I will go. So I'm at the small group for the first time this weekend, and it was really good. And they said something that really kind of struck a chord with me, and it has been on my heart since then. And so I thought I'd come on and talk a little bit about it. They were talking about water flowing through. And I am a huge water fan. Like, I love looking at water. I could be content just even watching the rainfall and go down the street. Like, anytime water is moving, it is beautiful to me. I love a lake, a creek, an ocean. I mean, could we go on and on, right? I just really, really enjoy water. In fact, when we first were looking at places to live, there were 2 trailer courts. And you're like, okay, Jenny, you're talking about trailer courts. But there was one that was on like a creek. And I really wanted to live there. That is where, like, that was my dream. Let's move my beautiful trailer onto this place that has a little creek. And I thought that would be amazing. Well, that was not what God had planned. God had planned for me to live in the middle of this trailer park instead. And it's okay. There is no water anywhere to be found, but that's okay. You never know what God's plans are. But I have found peace and rest by water most of my life. Even when I remember I was a little kid and I'd go to my babysitter's house and she had a bird bath. Now, to be fair, I don't know that I ever saw birds bathing in this bird bath because I probably wasn't quiet enough for the birds to enjoy the bird bath. But I was obsessed with this bird bath. I was like, there is a little stand here full of water that you allow birds to come bathe in. The concept is still a little boggling to me. But I remember like being obsessed with this bird bath and like watching it and thinking, this is amazing. So I have been obsessed with water since I can remember. Now, what does that have to do with anything? Really nothing, right? No. I now live on water. Like, I drink tea, but really water is my base, right? Because I'm a kidney stone girl, and I drink a lot of water every single day. In fact, before I can have tea, I have to drink 50 ounces of water. Now, is that a rule anybody else set? No. But otherwise, I would drink tea all day, and then at the end of the day, I'd be like, oh, maybe I should drink some water too. Not a good plan for Jenny. So I try to do about 100 ounces of water a day. Now, when you're doing that much water, there's a lot of flow of water that's happening in your body. A lot in, a lot out, a lot in and a lot out. Now, that's maybe a little too personal, but that's the whole point, to keep my kidneys healthy, to keep them cleansed and keep things moving through. And so when I was at the small group, I said, Sometimes in my life, I don't have a lot of water flowing through me. And they were like, okay, crazy. Like they all kind of looked at me like I was a little odd. And I think I said it really wrong. Because spiritually, for me, there are times that I'm not allowing water to flow in, and I'm also not flowing out with the water. So it's not constantly moving. There are times that I get kind of stagnant, and I am not allowing people to speak into my life. I'm not reading the word in a way that I'm actually absorbing it and learning. My prayer life is, like my husband said, becoming a monologue, and I'm just listing things off to God, and I'm not really hearing from him. I'm not taking time to hear from him. And so there are times in my life that I just don't have the flow in that I should. I'm not reaching out to my friends and saying, hey guys, I need some advice, or, Lord, I need to hear from you. I am just kind of self-abstaining. Like, I have enough water. I don't really need any right now. I'm content. And I have learned through kidney stones that water needs to be replenished on a daily, almost hourly basis. And it is hard spiritually to not be doing the same thing. When you get to the point that you're like, I'm fine, like spiritually, I'm in a good place, like we are good, let's not make any movement, like let's everybody stay still and hope nothing goes wrong. Right? Spiritually, we can sometimes get there that we're like, we've arrived, we got this, like we read and really devoured that last chapter, let's take a break. And because I have to be reminded daily to drink water, and that it is a daily thing, I am trying to remember that spiritually, because I don't have any water to come out to other people and bless them and teach them and encourage them and pray for them if I'm not being filled the same way, right? We've always heard, or I have always heard, you can't pour out from an empty cup. Like when your cup is empty and there's nothing left, you can't give to other people. You can't bless other people. You can't be an encouragement to other people because you're worn down. And I am telling you right now, I have been in those seasons. I have honestly been in the seasons where I'm like, I have nothing left. In fact, I think I've even shared that on the podcast, where I just get to the point that I'm empty and I'm tired and I'm worn down and I'm like, I have nothing left. And what I remembered this week is it's not necessarily that I go and I drink a gallon of God's blessing in one day. It is the small sips and the small things that I do throughout the day to connect with him, to listen to him. When I take a moment, my husband has been really encouraging in this area, but when I take a moment and I sit in silence before the Lord, and yes, silence is something that we all need a lot of and don't have a lot of. There's not a lot of silence in our world anymore. There's always music playing or people talking or a podcast on. Even in my car, I have a really hard time with silence. I either have the radio on or I'm talking to somebody through the speakers on the phone. I am always trying to keep noise happening. And I'm being encouraged right now to learn silence. And that only in the silence is that when I hear God. Now, sometimes God can break through the craziness, but I don't want him to have to break through my craziness and all the noise around me to be able to hear what he's saying. Sometimes I need to turn everything off. And it's not a long time. I'm just going to be honest with you. I'm not like hours at a time sitting in silence, because honestly, that's kind of impossible when you have a teenager or when you have toddlers, or like fill in the blank, right? It's pretty hard to have silence. But there are times that you need to turn everything off and go, Lord, I have a few minutes. What do you have for me? This morning, I was actually laying in bed and someone texted me something, and I was like, okay, Lord, what am I supposed to do with this? Like, oh, this is strange. And God actually, like, I heard the verse, be quiet, be still, and know that I am God. And then it was, speak, Lord, your servant is listening. And I went, speak, Lord, your servant is listening. And God showed some things to me at that moment that I was like, oh, I would never have done that myself. Like, I would never have figured that out. Okay, I get what you're saying, Lord. We'll see how this goes. But without that moment of be still and know that he is God and he's in control, and I don't need to talk and I don't need to jabber on, even though that's what I do here, that God can speak in those still moments. So I encourage you this week to take some time to find some silence, whether it's a minute a day or a minute to 5 minutes a day, or however long you can set aside. Sometimes it's a few seconds. As you turned off that car and you're sitting in the car and you need to bring the groceries inside, and you're sitting there and you take 5-second pause and say, Lord, do you have anything for me today? Be amazed at what God will speak to you. It may be something simple, and maybe a Bible verse that he brings back to your mind. Meditate on what he says, and let's see what God can do through the silence. And let the river flow through you. Be bringing it into your life as you flow out to other people. It is time for us to be rivers and be living water that is not stagnant in the bird bath, but is moving through our lives and blessing other people. Well, that's all I have for this week. My name is Jenny Senaparatna. I don't ever say that at this point, but here we are. You can find us at Real Life with Jenny on Instagram and on Facebook. You can also find me at christconnection.cc/Jen. All of my information is there. Super excited to be able to connect with you. Spring is just around the corner, and so are women's events. So keep me in mind. We are working this year on the word thrive, and I would love to come speak to the women of your church or your group and say, you know what? It is time for us to stop surviving and start thriving. You all have a blessed week as we spend some time in silence.